Welcome to Brain Strength, everybody. This is a series where this average fool talks to you a little bit about sports psychology so that hopefully you can be the best version of you. I'm your host, RJ Lynch, with my master's in sports psychology. Let's get this thing rolling. So in this episode of Brain Strength, we're going to be starting to do our series on different sports and the psychology behind them. In these episodes, I'll be going into a couple of different details about the sport, individualistic pieces of it, but looking at more from a macro level of how the sport is, the culture behind it, and common issues I see. If you follow our Instagram page, you'll also see I'll be doing some reels on different topics, talking about more individual things, about events, about positions, things like that that might be a little bit different and tricks that those groups can use. To start out the series, since it's basketball season starting up here for most of the high schoolers, for college, NBA just recently started, we're going to be starting with basketball. So to start things off, I really kind of want to talk about the personality of basketball. I want to talk a little bit about that from what I observe, what I see, what I hear, so that way we can start getting into the issues, the biggest issues that stem from this sport that might be a little bit different from maybe track, from football, from hockey, because there's a cultural and personality difference to each sport that really drives what causes our mental setbacks. So there are four big things I see with basketball that's like, oh, this is pretty common in a lot of the players I see. The first one is there's a lot more confidence generally. And this is mostly talking about those who are successful at the sport, who really thrive. They tend to be a lot more confident. You'll see a lot more mead mugging. You'll see a lot more celebrating. You'll see a lot more things where it's just like, I'm the best. I don't need to listen to you. There's a lot more of a reliance on ego aspect to it. Part of that is driven by just the way the media narrative is it, what we see, what's happened, and the fact that it's a sport that the individual can really take over a game and put their mark on things versus a football team where one player only makes so much of a difference. The next thing I see, unlike some sports, there's a lot more passion behind basketball. There are some sports out there where, especially once you hit a certain level, you're like, I do that then, I train it there, I'm good. As a former track athlete, I could say during season, you're all in, you're very passionate about it, you're happy to be there. But during the off season, a lot of times you're like, I'll take some breaks. I need some time off. Whereas basketball players, a lot of times you'll see a lot more passion, love for the game, and the aspect that, oh, we were at practice for 2 hours today. Yeah, I'm going to go shoot around there, play some pickup for another 2 hours afterwards somewhere else. There's usually a lot more of that to it. There's a little bit more of just, I love this game, and it just is fun to me. They also tend to be one of the more socially skilled sports because there's so much communication that has to happen within a game from play to play. They're usually a lot more talkative, sometimes in a way where it's trying to help each other, sometimes it's trying to get in their opponent's head, but there's usually a lot more outgoingness to them, or at least on the court, they're more outgoing. And then lastly, a little bit tied to that passion piece is there tends to be a very strong work ethic to those that are successful. Now, that tends to be one of the issues I find for people who are not successful is they're missing this piece, but we might talk about that a little bit later. They'll tend to spend hours in the gym, whether it's an hour at taking shots up before practice, after practice, going to the gym after a game and trying to figure out things. There's a little bit more of that just internal drive to improve there and there. So some of the common issues I see with basketball players, or the reasons why they don't succeed whereas others do from a mental standpoint, starts with pressure in the spotlight. Because you're one of 5 people on the court, there tends to be a lot more on you. Those who don't have that confident piece to them are trying to develop it or have it taken away from them for whatever reason creates a lot of issues. Handling emotions, dealing with social media pressures, and in-game focus lapses. Those tend to be the big issues that I see. So let's get into what they are and some of the things I might go after to help the athlete overcome them. So the first issue, that pressure in the spotlight. It's a fast-paced sport. You are one of 5 people usually on a court at a time. That means that you're accountable for everything that's happening. It's you versus the other person. You gotta be there. You gotta make sure things happen. In addition to that, when we have moments where that fast pace slows down, all eyes can come on you. So you're on that breakaway and you gotta put up that 3 to win the game, or you're at the free throw line. All these eyes are on you, and there's this very big pressure that gets put on you that can make you crumble. Someone who struggles with the spotlight, is having issues there, tends to be overthinking. You're going to feel your muscles get very tense. You're going to be making simple mistakes in big moments, that dribbling that you might be doing that you've done 3 million times at this point. How many times have you crossed the ball between your legs? All of a sudden you knock one off your heel for whatever reason, and then it goes the other way for the other team. You're just making these simple mistakes in big moments. It means that you're feeling that pressure and you're struggling with it. So how might I help as someone who's in the mental performance? Well, it really depends when the pressure is coming. If you're feeling a lot of this pressure in the spotlight, struggling with it prior to games that's causing anxiety, we might do things like pre-performance routines. Things for before, during the game might be things like mindfulness or breathing exercises. Things like that, so that you are able to create that little bit of separation when you're starting to feel the pressure. You're able to take a step back and be like, I don't need to be dealing with this right now. I'm good. I can handle this. Then imagery or simulation training. So having you visualize or imagine yourself in a scenario where you might feel pressure, and working through how to handle that can help ease a little bit of the pressure when it actually is there. Or putting yourself in simulations where the crowd noise is going, where things are getting loud. All those things just give you opportunities to learn how you need to cope. Because dealing with pressure comes down to how we're coping with it. What kind of coping mechanisms we have. Do we have the mental ability to handle even if we fail? And once you develop those, feel less of the pressure. Struggling with confidence. So like I said, basketball can be a sport of a lot of confidence, where we see a lot of big egos, a lot of things there. But if you're someone who all of a sudden it's stripped away from you, or you're always in that spot of, I'm not good enough, not sure if you're able to do what's needed, you're someone who has those symptoms of afraid of failing, of going into long slumps, that all of a sudden you can be hot for 3 games, but then you're cold for 5 more. You speak very negative about yourself and sometimes others to mask that lack of confidence. You start calling other people out because you're afraid to call yourself out. And then tying it all together a lot of times is that shying away from the opportunity. It's that idea of you're 0 from 3 from the line. Are you still willing to go up for that 4th shot? Are you willing to shift your brain from I'm 0 from 3 to I'm going to be 1 for 1 for the next shot? So what would I do to try to strike at confidence, to try to help spark it again? Post-game, post-practice, during halftime, whatever it might be, I might push my athlete to do 3 good things. And what does 3 good things mean? It means whether it's that looking at the first half of basketball you played that might have gone terribly. It's looking at the game or the practice you just had and thinking, oh, that was terrible. I want you to think about the 3 things you did very well in there. I want you to put positivity in your mind so that you stop yourself from spiraling farther. Then we start to use a little bit of imagery and self-talk, whether it's imagining yourself succeeding or using words to remind yourself that you are that badass, just reminding yourself of that. And then creating short-term goal setting. A lot of times we lose confidence because we set these long-term goals and we feel like they're so far away, and then we fail one week and it's like, I still had so much farther to go. Well, create some short-term things. Create little stepping stones so that you can cross those off the list and know it's like, oh, I'm getting there. I'm improving. I'm vibing. We're doing it. And then you go from there. Next issue I see a lot is emotional instability. So referee calls a bad call and then you're just all in the face like, where's the call? What's that? They get so angry. They get so up there that they start losing focus. They turn the ball over and they think they get swatted, but the ref doesn't make the call. And instead of getting back on defense, they're arguing about it. They're not handling their emotions. They're going through swings. They're struggling to deal with losses that they're in this long season, but all of a sudden they're throwing chairs against the wall when they have a bad performance. Those are those issues with struggling with your emotions. So the things I start to do is I start with mindfulness. I want you to create space between the stimulus that you just had, a bad call, and what your reaction is. That little momentary space where your kid starts right. It's like, oh, I'm getting angry. Let's not be angry because that doesn't help me. And then I tie in things like emotion meditations, being able to recognize when you are angry. What does angry feel like? What does sad feel like? What does happy feel like? So that you can then deal with it when you feel it. Practicing things like imagery for difficult moments. So putting yourself in imagery situation where you fail, but then you recover and go do something else. You recover and are back on defense for the next play. And then lastly, I might do things like thought reframing. So part of the reason we get angry is we start thinking that our failure is the end of the world. So what do I want you to do? I want you to reframe that thought into, it's just a game. It was just a shot. It was just one turnover. One turnover doesn't make or break a game. Even if it's at the end of the game, there's so many things that led up to that moment that we have to remind ourselves that all that matters more than that one instant. Next up is the social media pressures. And this kind of ties into a little bit of the spotlight piece. But basketball, from what I've seen, is one of the unique sports where the highlight plays, where the social media influence, the YouTube videos of person dunking on this person or that person, posterizing someone. It's so ingrained in the sport that performing well or not being caught on the opposite end, not being the person that got posterized, plays such a role in a person's mind that we start obsessing over how we are as ourselves. Instead of getting in there and trying to block the shot, we're like, nope, I ain't getting on that poster. You ain't doing that. You're ignoring other things. You're ignoring the best route. You're focused on impressing others. You're ignoring what the best play is instead of doing the one that looks the coolest. Things that I do to help, along with similar things that you would do for just regular pressure, like the mindfulness, imagery, all that kind of stuff, I start really looking at values. So like, why do you value this social media thing so much? Why does this matter so much? I challenge that. I challenge it through what we call society scorecards. Like, do you care about this because you care about it or because you're told you're supposed to care about it? Goal setting. What are your goals? Is your goal to win a championship or is your goal to have 1,000 likes on YouTube? What really matters more to you? And then mindfulness, as I said, just deal with the pressure to create that space. The final big issue a lot of times that I see is in-game focus lapses. So you can be focused for so long, but all of a sudden a mistake happens, something goes wrong, and then you just lose focus. Simple circumstances become hard. This can often look like making mistakes in critical moments, doing uncommon things. Like if you're someone who's usually very good with the ball, all of a sudden just leave it out there for the steal, like, what? Missing cues or not writing the right play, misunderstanding things like that, that usually comes down to the fact that you're losing focus for whatever reason in the game. What would I do as the NPC to help you out here? Mindfulness, which usually goes into focus training, or talk therapy. Sometimes you just have to talk you out. It's like, why are you losing focus here? What's going on? Are you not sleepy enough? Are you not doing this? Are you not eating properly? So your brain's everywhere. We start to dive into what's causing the behavior so that we can strike at it. Now, finally, you've addressed all those issues. You're going through things. What does it usually look like to be the successful athlete in basketball based on my experience from athletes I've worked with and things I've observed? Motivated. You continue to go through things when they're hard. It's the Kobe Bryants who talk about losing a game, and then they show up at the gym at 1 a.m. to start shooting shots because they want to get better, because they want to improve there. They tend to be very growth-oriented. They understand that the season's long, that you're going to miss a lot of shots, especially if you're a three-point specialist. You're going to miss a lot of shots in your career. Can you focus on the fact of, am I improving, rather than what does it look like on the box score? They're focused and self-aware. They're able to stay in the game the whole game, and when they notice themselves either falling away or when they notice themselves becoming emotional, they're able to adapt. And lastly, there's strong communication, teamwork in there. That's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're looking for more, leave us a comment, send us an email, give us a call, or follow our Instagram page for our little reels and shorts that we'll be doing. So until next time, if there's anything that I said today that you found offensive for whatever reason, I hope you can forgive me. If you say anything in the comments that I find offensive, no, I'll forgive you. Brain strength, out.